you have, for example, in here, two sets of measurement. Again, from the one that could originate from the private companies and the one that we have from national accounts. Do you see a future where some sort of measurement like ESG may be compatible with national accounts?
Yeah, it has to be. Juan Pablo, you're an economist, so you know that you cannot have the macroeconomic indicator being completely, at a different, on a different basis compared to otherwise the two will not meet, right? The macro has to meet the micro. Look at it today. Today, when the, as you know, but I'm just saying for the benefit of your listeners, today when the national accountants measure GDP of a country as a measure of its macroeconomic performance, they will look at microeconomic indicators. They will add up the profits plus the salaries plus the rents plus the net interest plus the depreciation added back to measure the value added. So this is a way of doing value addition, but it is being done, compiled at the micro level and added up to give a macroeconomic indicator known as GDP. So this is the so-called income method of GDP, and most statistical offices around the world use the income method. So actually, there is a strong connection between the way GDP is reported and how it is compiled from the micro level, the corporate level. Now, if we adjust the GDP and say, okay, GDP is wrong, it doesn't account for natural capital and human capital, okay, fine, yes. But if you change it and you don't change what is happening at the microeconomic level, then there's a problem. Because then, from the macro level, it's coming like this, and from the micro level, is going like that. It will not add up. The microeconomic indicators for performance have to add up to the macroeconomic indicators. So value addition at the micro level needs to add up to value addition at the macro level. And that is already happening when we look at the GDP compilations today. But it is not going to happen unless we ensure that at the microeconomic level, corporate performance level, you don't just measure value addition for shareholders, but you also measure value addition for other stakeholders, such as employees, society, and future generations. When you do that, then you will have a set of micro indicators which will actually be able to add up into the adjusted GDP at the macroeconomic level. Today, we have micro indicators called profits and salaries and rents and blah, blah, all that. It adds up to GDP, and that's fine. It's a way of deriving value addition at the macro level by using the microeconomic level. So that's the gap that we have to fill. This is the gap between the microeconomic performance metric and the macroeconomic performance metric. We can't simply adjust the macroeconomic and do nothing with the microeconomic level. So therefore, by the same logic, just as we are using profits and salaries and net rents and so on and so forth, and net interest of the companies, which the companies pay, we will have to adjust that with externalities to be able to come to the corrected GDP. You can't have one without the other.
Exactly, but when you go to externalities, which for the listeners are not accounted costs that are created by institutions, either private or public. So the economic way to do that is through internalized externalities, which is to give a price signal.
That's right.
That will let the consumer know that the social cost of X product is larger than the actual production cost.
Yeah.
But that entails regulation and higher prices. So in some way, so for example, a lot of institutions mention the importance of reducing economic incentives for fuels, for example. So the idea is that the price of fuels increases through time. And that has happened here in Colombia, over the last, year and a half, the price of fuels has increased like 75%. And although it's environmentally important, people are not happy.
Yeah, no, this will happen. This will happen until such time as the alternative comes up and is provided at a better and lower price. And by the way, that is happening. But sorry, let me come back to a point that you made about the internalization of externalities will affect the price. But it is 2 points I'll make. One is that some externalities are negative, like environmental externalities. Some are positive, like the externalities of let us say CSR programs, or the externalities of training by a company. I remember doing a calculation around the time that we first met in 2012. That was for my first estimate for the positive externalities of an Indian technology firm known as Infosys. It was in the billions of dollars. It was $1.1 billion and $1.2 billion. I remember that. Positive externalities, right? Why? Because this company hires maybe 25, 30,000 people every year and trains them up. And yeah, some of them leave. And the ones that leave, which is about 15, 16% on average attrition in that market, those 5,000 people are carrying with them the knowledge and the skill that they learned at Infosys. That's a positive externality because it's a benefit to other companies, not just in India, but in Silicon Valley, in Australia, in UK, etc., etc. So there are positive externalities as well. We need to account for these externalities. I think in accounting for externalities is the step one for internalization. Step two is when regulation charges you for the negatives and rewards you for the positives. So I'm saying that you need step one, at least account for the externalities before you get to step two, which is the internalization of those externalities. And that's definitely something that is desirable. And by the way, all those data points that are required, that are being asked for by the European Commission, will be very helpful. In fact, they are essential to be able to help us to calculate the externalities. But just collecting data is not going to solve the problem. Even the next step is collect the data and convert that into impact accounts, means the accounts of the company, not just for the shareholders, but for stakeholders. So 4 dimensions: natural, human, social, and produced capital. Even that is only stage 2. And then you need to go to stage 3. So stage 1 is collect the data. Stage 2 is convert it into information, which means impact accounts. And stage 3 is institute policy measures to reward those who generate positive impact and to penalize those. Penalize also, right? It's a zero-sum game. You cannot only keep rewarding people and never penalizing them. So we have to do a combination of rewards and penalties for creating positive and negative externalities.